Thank you. Actually, the relationship between literature and architecture has been explored, throughout all the 20th century. There is one big, but not one giant leap that we tried to do at the end of the last decade, when we developed the Abitare magazine, in which all the architecture, along with Stefano Boeri, who was the editor-in-chief at the time, and a bunch of people, interdisciplinary people, who were obsessed by the idea that all architecture projects should and must be entirely described through the literary medium, and only through that. So basically, we developed 1 year of 12 issues, entirely made up of tales of storytelling. By the way, the first issue was also hosted a piece by Philippe Arrenault, and we had Ian McEwan in the role. We had Julio Cortázar, and by the way, this year is the whole Biennale is 1914, 2014. Actually, those are the dates of birth and death of one of the greatest experimentators in experimental minds in 20th century literature, who's Julio Cortázar. Julio Cortázar was born in Paris, in Bruxelles in 1914, and died in Paris in 1984. So it's exactly 20 years from his death and 100 years from his birth. And Julio Cortázar was one of the first great writers who thought about dwelling the space and inhabiting the space as a true narrative power. He wrote a beautiful book called Los Autonautas de la Cosmopista, in Spanish, which is basically a pun about highway and cosmonauts, and basically stayed 1 month or 1 month and 10 days with his wife at the time in 1983. He traveled all along French highways without never exiting the highways. And so he basically described he had a constraint of never exiting the highways. And this led to an incredible book made of pictures, of drawings, and of this great narrative constraint that it's really one of the first exploration, probably with the Ballard, of the beautiful spaces of highways, of autoroute. And it's a wonderful book that inspired us a lot while making the magazine. Actually, the magazine then continued with a less radical take on architecture and narrative, because originally every piece of architecture, every piece of design was only accompanied, was only explained through literature. So after a while, some of the more purist reader reacted in a unsatisfied way, probably, and so the magazine shifted a little bit. This relationship between literature and architecture comes from me in a moment in which I'm rethinking completely the obsession and my position also as a writer, because I think that we are living in a post-literary world, and we are already doing a series of research with Carlo Ratti and Matthew Claudel, that might be here sometimes, that are leading us to discover what are the signs of this post-literary world. Basically, literature is becoming more and more marginal in the market economy, in the cultural market economy, while art is becoming more and more significant. By the way, I think there is Shumon, who on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, posted a beautiful and provocative article about novelists being envious of artists and starting to describe, telling stories set in the art world, because they feel that the art world is more poignant, is more like at the center of the preoccupation, or basically it has more money in it, or more people, or high-end people tend to inhabit it. While actually, if you're inhabiting the literary world these days, you feel a lot of frustration. And I don't mean just the European or Italian, especially. As you know, Italy has one of the lowest reading rates of all Europe and probably of all the world. And this is a preoccupying thing, obviously. By the way, it would have been beautiful to have in Monditalia also a depiction, a description, and an exploration of this particularly worrying situation. In this situation, what is interesting also about the Italy reading world is that we publish 70,000 books per year, which is an incredible number. And there are many other economical data that can give you a hint about about this post-literary world. Obviously, people are not reading less because of the crisis. They're not buying less books because of the crisis, but obviously because of digital media. So we tried, along with Carlo Ratti and Matteo Crodel, to reverse the situation and try to explore the obsession for reading in another way. Basically, I woke up one day and I felt that the highlighted part of Kindle, when you read a book on Kindle, it gives you the most highlighted, and all digital e-readers give you that service, give you the most highlighted phrases decided by collectivity, basically by the wisdom of the masses, of the crowds. So basically you have the most highlighted phrases from Lolita, one after the other, give you a beautiful resonant harmonics of what you are going to read, even before you read it. It's not a resume, it's not telling the story, it's something deeper and at the same time more superficial. I tried to apply the same thing to Cedric Price, Cedric Price book, and Google Books give you the most highlighted phrases by Google Books reader. I'm going to read you a couple. At page 175 of the English version is this beautiful phrase: "We live in the flicker, may it last as long as the old earth keeps rolling, but darkness was here yesterday. Imagine the feelings of a commander of a fine trireme in the Mediterranean, ordered suddenly to the north. Imagine him here, the very end of the world, a sea the color of lead, a sky the color of smoke." This is the most highlighted phrase in Ansurik's book about Cedric Price. So when we started to explore this obsession about digital highlighting on Amazon or on Google Books, etc., we found out that this was also a very speed-up method of reading that was at the same time disquieting and interesting. And we are beginning, this is just one part of this research that we are doing, that is not just a cultural or intellectual research. For me, it's also an existential research, because I am questioning, should I ever keep on producing novels? Obviously, yes, but I have a contract or something like this. But apart from that, is the form of the novel and this editorial world really the best way to explore or like give an account of the beautiful complexity or an exciting complexity of this time? I don't know. Basically, I try, by the way, we are trying to explore this subject from many different points of views. There is the sociological point of view, there is the textual point of view, there is a semiological point of view, and obviously there is a philosophical point of view. So probably we are not anymore in a world in which literature is the prince of humanist activities. And this is something that many readers realized, not many writers realized yet. And it's something that we have to take very seriously, because on the other hand, this marginality is a very powerful point of view. Because when you are at the center of everything, you don't see, suddenly you don't realize the truth of things. And basically you are too satisfied, your stomach is too full to be interested in the outside world. While a million of point of views, of marginal point of views, can be very interesting. The problem is that it's very difficult to give an account of complexity with a set of mediums, with a set of knowledge that is being kind of surpassed. And let me just make a little bit of publicity to this Hans Ulrich book that I just wrote a preface of it. It's Ways of Curating. It just came out in Italian, and it's called Fare una mostra. It's also interesting that this beautiful title that was an homage to John Berger, Ways of Curating, not only John Berger. By the way, I like also to thank Asa Drazza and Marina Strogo, who's the translator. It just came out in Italian, and I wrote a sort of portrait of Hans Ulrich that is going to be a part of a book soon. It's a portrait in 7 flights. Thank you very much.